If you don't put your personal twist or you don't consider your students and what you're planning and what you're making, then they're not going to be helped. We're trying to shape people, not make robots be able to spit out math equations and science facts.
Welcome to Key Connections for Educators. I'm Nate Key.
And I'm Hannah Connect.
I got my start in corporate training.
And I started out as a classroom teacher.
But the conversations between us, they've made us better educators.
And now we're inviting you into those conversations because learning out loud together changes everything.
So whether you teach students or you train professionals, we believe these conversations can connect us all. Welcome back to part 2 of our incredible conversation with Robert. In part 1, we dove into his training as an educator, the surprises, the challenges, growth that shaped him as a teacher.
And now in this second half, we're diving into his student teaching experience even further and his perspective on the current state of education, the challenges and opportunities he sees, and how his peers view the field. We'll also dig into the topics he's most passionate about, his aspirations for the future, and advice for anyone thinking about becoming a teacher.
Trust me, you're going to walk away from this episode inspired and challenged. So let's jump right back in.
As a young educator, what are your thoughts on the current state of education? And are there some specific challenges or opportunities that you see?
I've thought for a long time that our education system needs to change. I don't know the exact rankings, but we're not number one in any core subject or any type of learning. And again, like that's something that if there's a problem, let's try to fix it. And this is definitely a coach's thing too. If you see a play that works, I am going to copy it from you. Like I'm going to take it and I'm going to use it. And then I want it to be successful for me. So if we look at the number one ranked with whatever, whether it's the same country for all the same subjects or cherry picking which ones, what do they do? Let's study it, let's copy it, and let's basically use it if we can and see if it works for our students. It's harder because of the size of our country compared to some of the other ones who have better education programs. But at the same time, that's not an excuse to not serve all of the people in our country. But definitely the climate's a little scary right now. That was a huge thing for all of my peers. I'd say we're like not quite 50-50, but pretty close. A lot of us are going to grad school if we're able. And then everyone else who's getting into it, it was definitely a concern whether there's a teacher shortage. So getting a job isn't a problem, but in terms of what is my job going to look like, I got to make sure I'm going to the right school with the right admin and the right team. And I don't want to be a robot, like repeating a lesson. If my principal walks in and is observing me and they have my lesson plan and they're like, oh, well, you didn't exactly say blah, blah, blah. That's not a school anybody probably wants to work in. But, some scripted is good. I've seen a lot of literacy programs and I've heard a lot of complaints from the teachers that they change every 2 years and you feel like you finally get a grip on it and then you lose it. I'm not the biggest fan of the literacy programs, but it's good for everyone to have a baseline or something to lean off of. But I find that I'd rather lean off a person rather than a company. So if one of the other 4th or 5th grade teachers on your team has been doing this and it's been working, like let's get into that. I'm going to use that lesson, adopt it for my class and go. We have all these resources and things to help us. And it's important that we use them so that we're not continuously just planning away and having no life outside of the classroom. But if you don't put your personal twist or you don't consider your students and what you're planning and what you're making, then they're not going to be helped. And it's the same thing with creating a playbook. Like I'm doing that right now. I'm going to coach high school girls flag football in California, which I'm super excited about. And I have like 27 plays that I just made and adjusted towards their game, but I haven't met any of my players. So I have positions and stuff that I have an idea of the type of player I want there. But since I haven't met any of those girls, like I couldn't tell you whether or not those plays would be successful right now because I don't know our personnel. So it's the same in the classroom. If you don't teach to a person rather than teaching from a curriculum, then it's not going to be as successful.
I'm really responding to that because I also coach soccer. And we teach plays to the kids, but they can't go into a game and do that play exactly. You do the best to anticipate where somebody's gonna go if you're doing a play, but you don't know if they're gonna follow this person or that person, or if they're gonna press, or they're gonna expand, and so there has to be that muscle memory of these are the things that we do, but also the flexibility to adapt that play, call an audible, and do something a little different. However, everyone does need to actually have an understanding of the mechanics of how that play works so they can be in the right place at the right time. And that's maybe where I see scripting as a teacher, not so much that we need to read from the script, but especially as a new teacher to have that playbook to be able to see exactly how this needs to translate to my students. And then as I get more comfortable with it, maybe I've taught that class a couple of times, then I have the ability to start just looking at the students a little bit more and have the ability to then adapt it to what they need. And that's that place where I don't know that every educational like board understands that for somebody doing it for the first time, they need the script. For somebody doing it for the 15th time, they actually need to be looking at Hannah and at Robert and saying, what do you guys actually need? Because if I'm just following the script and not actually looking at you and seeing how you're responding, I could just record myself and play it in front of everyone and get the same response. That's not education. So I really resonate with that. And I think that you have this great advantage of having that coaching background. And I think in the past, we've looked at coaches as like sub-rate teachers because it's like you want to do coaching and you're going to teach something and maybe it's a hobby for you to be a teacher, but you really want to be a coach. And I think that's flipping. I think we're noticing that the best coaches are sometimes the best educators because they're actually able to respond in the ways that a true coach needs to. So I love that you're bringing that to the table and have the chance to really articulate that into your education. And hopefully, as a world, we'll have the opportunity to take those things and move forward. So I have optimism that no one wants to have terribly educated people. So I think we we do want to have something that's gonna be great. Um, is there any topics around education that maybe make you feel really passionate more than others? Obviously, you mentioned math and literacy a little bit there, but is there any subject that you really resonate with?
I've always been more of a teacher over subject learner. If I have a great teacher in whatever subject, it's going to make me work harder for it. Someone who really comes to mind was my 10th grade English teacher, Miss Menachelle. Her one class 100% prepared me for college writing. And I didn't really need to take an English class after that. Like her expectation was so high for us. And if you don't expect much from your students, then you're not going to get much. She was kind, she was fair, and she made us work hard, but we saw the results. We saw our learning grow and our ability to write and read and break down a story just went through the roof. If you have a science teacher that's awesome, they're going to put you on that track to enjoy it. If you have a math teacher that's awesome, they're going to put you on that track to enjoy it. So that's really how I fall. I'm happy to teach anything and I'm happy to go anywhere. But in terms of, I don't know, this might just be the stereotypical coach in me. But if I do like middle or high school, eventually, probably history would be cool. I really enjoyed that the U.S. history part or like the World War I, World War II stuff, even from a global perspective, because there's just so much that happened and so many cool facts. Definitely a little bit of an ancient Greece, ancient Rome, ancient Egypt nerd too. I love that stuff.
Who would have thought that military conquests and coaching go hand in hand? Maybe there's something there.
When we were talking a little bit about the personalization of learning, we definitely see so many people are talking about student centered instruction. And yes, there is some value to having that script, that structure, but at the same time, you can't necessarily adapt to your students if you're bound by that particular structure. And so there's a balance between using your resources and what really works and really knowing and understanding your students. And that's what I'm hearing from you, Robert, is you're wanting to get to know, okay, what do these students need and how can I adapt what I've been given to meet them where they're at? And with so much of our student population having gone through COVID, we see a lot of learning gaps right now. And so, more than ever, it's in our best interest to know our students and understand our students so that we're not teaching way above their heads and missing some of the major gaps that they may come with to no fault of their own, just the circumstances that they're going through, the cards that they were dealt. And so I really resonated as well with what you had said. So, where are your aspirations as an educator? And where do you see yourself in 5, 10 years? And are there specific skills or areas you want to develop as you grow in your career?
One of my main goals right now, since I'm still a student, is getting my master's, obviously, and I should complete that program next year. And then I definitely just want to get my PhD or equivalent for education by the time I'm 30. That's some of my big goals there. In terms of actually being in the classroom and being on the field or on the court as a coach, I'm very passionate. I've coached anywhere from third, fourth, fifth graders to freshmen, sophomore, juniors in high school. And that range, like I'm happy to do any of it. So I want to make sure I'm having like a diverse experience in schools and really making sure that you can take things you get from teaching older kids and bring them down to the lower kids and adjust it. And same with the other way around, just making sure things are fair, things are fun. I think a lot of the times we neglect the older students in terms of, oh, well, we don't need to make it fun. They have all this information they need to learn. Let's just focus on them getting those things down. But I could be down for making a popsicle for it again. Like, I think that would be helpful. And obviously, as you get older, maybe there's an essay along with it, but at least there's still that hands on and there's plenty to do with that. So, really making sure that I'm not just stagnant in one place so I can learn as much as I can by teaching different grades and different types of students, whether it's age or demographic or whatever it is.
What's a change you'd make in the educational system? If you could just like wave your magic wand, what would you change and why?
Um, that's a good question. What would I change and why? I think the one thing I would really change in terms of elementary school and the younger grade setting is I'm really not a big fan of departmentalization. In your classroom and in Mr. Connect's classroom, that community was so tight. And that's what made going to school awesome. And you were in class with your friends all the time, and you had that awesome relationship with that one teacher. I think you lose, obviously, not everyone enjoys every class, but you lose that camaraderie with your classmates and the teacher. And I just remember skipping around in middle school, high school, and even in college classes. You go to that one class and you're so excited to be there and you're so ready. And then you go to the next one and your effort level just drops, your excitement drops because if you don't like the teacher, then that's hard. And I think it's really important for us to give that support because not only is it important in terms of how comfortable you are in the classroom, but also in other types of learning, whether it's social learning, if you're in the same class with the same people and the teacher does a good job of switching around the seating chart, then you're going to sit next to new people in your class. And by the end of the year, you should be friends and know everybody. So I think there's a huge benefit to keeping everyone in the same place. And it might be harder as an educator, but if you can split up the planning in terms of teams and do what we've been talking about and make it your own for your students, then you're not overwhelmed with the planning aspect. And I think the students really benefit socially, emotionally, and academically. So that would probably be what I'd change.
Is there any advice that you'd give to your younger self or to somebody that's exploring education for the first time?
You do just have to dive in and go into the classroom. There have been a few people in my program who, they did all the coursework freshman, sophomore year, and then they got to junior year and they're still unsure. I think you have to love it. You have to be honest with yourself. And it's important to remember that you can still love it and not have a good day and go home and collapse and completely rot on the couch afterwards. There's no shame in that. Everyone has it. I think it's important to, just like all things in life, you got to put one foot in front of the other. You got to get out of bed in the morning. The sun is going to rise. Like no matter what happened that day, you're going to have rough days. And then you're going to wake up and the next day in the classroom might be the best day you've had. Or you might have 3 rough days in a row. And that's not exempt from just teaching. That's life. That's challenges you're going to go through. So if you're passionate about it, then you got to stick with it, because there are not enough students who have teachers who genuinely care and want to see their success. In terms of some professors, mainly you see it in the college level, there's a professor who's qualified, they understand the information to teach it, but they don't know how to teach. Real quick tangent. I've had way too many friends in the College of Business at JMU who have group essays. What is a group essay? That sounds like 4 different people wrote it and they get points off for that. It's like, well, yeah, because 4 different people wrote it. That's what a group essay is. So people who aren't teachers need to take just basic education classes and get those little videos or tidbits of information of, all right, you're creating a lesson that helps, not just freestyling a group essay or a project that, you think might be helpful, but you don't know. There's research done that tells you how to get positive learning outcomes. And it's important to stick to that research.
What I've heard as you've been talking about different classes that you took in college and also just even the classroom environment that you were student teaching in, it's all about the energy of that teacher to almost bring that climate, that emotional climate to the classroom. And I'm with you, especially for younger students and with the tumultuous home lives many of them come from. There's a sense of solace, comfort, peace when they know they're going to have that safe space in that one classroom with that one teacher. And even going from parents to school, being able to transfer that to a teacher who really is going to hold that space emotionally for their kids, I think is so important. And if you go into this field, there's so much energy that you're bringing. And when you were talking about your 12-hour days, I know why it was so hard. It was because you had to be on all of those 12 hours as the teacher and as the coach. And it does take a lot of energy to be on and to be able to hold that space for all of those kids.
I think it's really important to help facilitate the learning of not just the core subjects, but just a well-rounded person. I witnessed it in the preschool classroom. If you're just in that classroom for a day or two, you can see the leaps and bounds that these students are making. And it's really important to remember everything is important. The arts and physical education don't get as much as attention as they should. As someone who loves athletics, but was also heavily involved in music too, those are passions, and it's a part of letting a student be a person and making sure we're facilitating their learning in terms of the arts, in terms of physical education, in terms of social and emotional education. We teach students how to solve math problems and how fast is the train going to get there, but we're not as much teaching them how do you cope, how do you mindset, like what's a good mindset to have when you face a problem. We're trying to shape people, not make robots be able to spit out math equations and science facts. So it's important to remember those are little humans that you have the privilege, and it's a huge responsibility to shape and grow them into people and help them pursue what they want to do and help them blossom and be able to express themselves in a world where we really put a lot of emphasis on the core subjects. But when you ask somebody, like, what do you like to do? They're going to say, oh, I like to play the piano, or I like to do this sport, or I like to work out, or whatever. Very few people are like, oh, yeah, I just absolutely love quadratic formula equations. So,
There's a few, but it's a rare few.
yes. But those people need to be supported as well, and people need to push them towards their passion too. That's what it's about. We shouldn't be shutting down dreams to a 3rd, 4th, or 5th grader. Let them figure it out. Let them pursue it.
You see the dropout rates in high schools dramatically decrease when kids are in clubs, or if kids are in the arts or in chorus or band, or even esports or soccer. Obviously, there's a lot of different funding requirements that come into that. And there's a lot of debate on how to get those programs into the hands of everybody. But at the same time, I think it's all of us want that for our students, whether or not you have one technique or another to get there. I think we're all in that same place where we want kids to love coming to school.
And
And that's
learning, and that it's a lifelong endeavor, not just those 13 years in a school setting and then those 4 years in college. It's a lifelong journey. And what I'm also hearing you say is really cultivating and nurturing the whole human experience and not just seeing students as a test score. And I think that as educators, that's where we need to be all in. Those students, they're not a test score. They're a real human being, and we're there to nurture, support, and you're right, help them grow. Thank you, Robert, for joining us today. I loved hearing your thoughts and your aspirations and your viewpoint as a young educator coming into this field. And you've encouraged other young educators out there that this is a worthwhile endeavor and that we truly are making a meaningful impact.
All right, well, everyone, it's your turn. We always want to hear from you in the comments. Please drop one piece of advice that you'd give to a new educator starting out. Or if you're a teacher, maybe what's one thing you wish you knew before you stepped into the classroom for the first time? I'd love to see your comments. We'd love to hear your insights and your experiences. Don't forget to like and subscribe. That really helps us get in front of the people like you that love and are passionate about education. Robert, thank you so much. And we're so excited to see your career as it continues in the world of education.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure.